So, have you ever asked yourself, how do you handle a good interview? How do you get people to talk naturally on camera? Today, I'm going to tell you how in 3 steps. So the first step is going to be an obvious one, but it's an important one that I think people don't do well or they take for granted. And that is, you need to do your research. That's step 1. You need to know who you're talking to, have your questions in mind, and be prepared with follow-up questions and not scripted ones. You need to listen to them while they're talking and have a conversation. That's the real key, I think, to having a really nice documentary-style interview, is that it's not scripted. It's something you're having a conversation back and forth with this person. Which brings us to step 2. And that is, I never, unless forced to get the interview, I never give them the questions in advance. Because here's what happens, and I saw this many times when I would do interviews at NASA. If they get the question in advance, they feel the need to script out their answers. And then they've got these sheets of paper they bring with them to the interview. And then they want to make sure they say everything word for word on their script. And it's the most stilted, boring conversation because they're not professional actors. They're not people who are normally in front of a camera, and they keep referring to their script, and they get concerned about, am I saying it exactly right? I don't think, I need to do it again. And it just ruins the overall feel and vibe of the interview. So, so your question may be, how do you get an interview if the people don't know what you're going to ask them? Listen, you're talking to somebody who knows what it is they do. They're an expert at what they do. If it's their art, if it's their business, if it's their area of research, this is all they do all day, every day. They know it. And if someone walked into their place of work and just started asking them questions, they have the answers. The only variable that throws people off is the camera. But it's not different. So that's what I'm talking about from the first step, is you have to be prepared for the questions and have follow-up responses to them and have a conversation. But once you get them rolling on stuff they know about, they can talk all day. And I would see that often when I did other interviews where there were scripted questions. Always at the end, I'd be like, I'm going to ask you a couple more. And we would just have a conversation. And that part of the interview was always 100 times better than the part where they were referring to their notes every time and the scripted answers. So never give them the questions in advance unless they're like, I'm not doing an interview unless you give me the questions. Avoid it at all costs. But even if you have to give it in advance, have extra questions that you're going to just say, oh, you know what, before we're done, I just had a couple more questions. Throw them in at the end. I guarantee those are the ones you're going to want to use versus whatever that is they scripted. In fact, if they ask for them scripted, just give the softball ones scripted, the basics, the stuff you're not really that concerned about, and then follow up with the extra questions while you're in the interview. That's a tip I just came up with, and I'm going to use that going forward in the future. We'll call that step 2B, but I'm going to incorporate that into my future planning as well. Step 3 is be a good listener. It is so valuable to your process to sit there and pay attention to what they're saying. You're not just asking questions and getting them to respond. Pay attention so that you can then have a conversation with them, have follow-up questions. If there's something that piques your curiosity while they're talking, say, hey, tell me more about that. I don't understand. Be dumb if you have to. It's okay. Because I learned this from a friend, when you play dumb, people's nature is they want to help. So they'll fill in the holes if you just say, hey, I don't understand. Can you tell me more about that? So step 3, be a good listener. Bonus tip. The bonus tip is when you're all done, you think you've gotten everything, ask them, hey, is there anything I didn't ask you that you'd like to share? Now, at first, many times people will go, no, I think we covered it. Well, then their mind starts going and they go, well, there is this thing, and I could say this, ... And you're going to get 10 or 15 more minutes of great material if you're applying what I just said about being a good listener. They're going to say some stuff, and you're like, oh, tell me more about that. Let them go on and on. You're going to get some great material. And the longer you go, the more natural this whole process becomes for them, and you're going to start having fun. I've sat down with some people who were like, oh, I don't know, I'm uncomfortable, I'm shy. And we ended up spending an hour together. Like, you get so much material if you just be natural, be a friend, and ask honest questions. So step 1, do your homework. Be ready and know your subject before you start. Step 2, don't give them the questions. Step 3, be a good listener. And finally, always ask that bonus question at the end. After they're comfortable, after you've been flowing for a while, you're going to get some good stuff, I promise. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions for me, please, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Talk to you soon.